Alright, so this is chapter 11. We'll discuss power in AC circuits in this lecture. So let us say we have these very simple circuits with Vs equal to Vm cos omega t plus phi, and we are asked to find all the powers delivered, consumed in this circuit. So there is a voltage source, resistor, capacitor, so powers in each of them. Now we've solved this circuit before, so I'm not solving it again. I'm just writing the answers, the currents and voltages in this circuit as we had derived before. It's quite straightforward, right? So the current is in complex domain is Vs by R plus 1 by j omega c, and then we can use that to find so I turns out to be Im cos omega t plus theta, where Im is omega c Vm by all this, and theta is this, and the resistor voltage is simply I times R, so R times I, and the capacitor voltage is that I divided by j omega c, and so that is Im by omega c cos omega t plus theta minus 90 degrees because of the j. Alright, and the magnitude is Im by omega c. So now let's discuss power. So we begin with what is the instantaneous power, which is the concept we are familiar with. So the power for any element in any circuit is the voltage times the current. So let us find this for the source. So for the source, the power is voltage is Vm cos omega t plus phi, and the current is Im cos omega t plus theta. That is, I'm just directly taking it from here. Alright, so I is this, V is this. And so this is Vm Im, and cos. So cos is cos C cos D is cos C plus D plus cos C minus D divided by 2. So we'll get cos 2 omega t plus phi plus theta and cos phi minus theta. The power in the resistor is simply, what is the power in the resistor? V times I, and V is I by R. So this is I squared by R. What have I done? What did I say? V is R times I, I'm sorry. So I squared R. So this is I squared R. So that is this. And the cos squared omega t will have cos 2 omega t plus 2 theta plus 1. And the power in the capacitor is similarly V times I. So we already did the V and the, let me just go back. So I times Vc. So Im squared by omega c into this. So cos omega t theta plus minus 90 cos omega t plus theta. And if we do cos C cos D, then we will get cos 2 omega t plus 2 theta plus cos 90 degrees, and cos 90 is 0. So we will get only the second term. Now, I don't know how much of this you've done before, but instantaneous power in AC circuits is really not a useful quantity. We really don't care to know how the power is varying at each moment of time and versus time. We really want to know how much average power the circuit is consuming. So let us define and calculate average power. So the average of any quantity, well, average with respect to time of any quantity, in our case power, is defined as that quantity integrated over some duration of time divided by that time duration. Some capital T is a time duration. So the average of P is the integral of P from 0 to capital T divided by T. Now for our case, the power is a periodic quantity, and if the quantity is periodic, typically the capital T will be the period of that periodic quantity. So for our case, the period is the frequency is omega. So we say the time period, will take it as 2 pi by omega. So the average power will be defined with capital T given by 2 pi by omega. So let us calculate. So we say the power for the source is 1 by capital T, 0 to capital T, Vm Im by 2 cos 2 omega t plus phi plus theta plus cos phi minus theta. Now if you integrate this, and I'm sure you've done this integration before, If I integrate any sinusoid over one full period, then the integral is simply 0. In fact, now I am integrating it over uh, two periods because this frequency is twice. So the period is actually t by 2. Anyway, so the integral of the first term is 0, and the second term is a constant with respect to time. So we'll get Vm Im by 2 cos phi minus theta integral t dt divided by capital T, so that is just 1. So we'll get the average power as Vm Im by 2 cos phi minus theta. So I am repeating this. This is the power supplied by a power. Let me think about this. Now this is a power consumed by any element when the voltage is Vm cos omega t plus phi and the current is Im cos omega t plus theta. Alright, so this is an important result. What it is telling us is that so in general, the voltage and current will always have different phases in general. Only in a resistive circuits will these phases be the same. In a circuit that has inductors and capacitors, which is a generalized case, phi and theta will be different. In that case, the power consumed by any circuit or any element is given by the product of Vm Im by 2 and cos phi minus theta, and cos phi minus theta is called the power factor, and power factor is an important quantity in all AC circuits. Okay, so let's look at this a little quantitatively. So here is the same circuit, and I'm saying let Vs be some numbers 20 cos 400t volts, and I want to calculate the power supplied by Vs for different values of R and C. So I'm starting with an R of 50 ohms and a short circuit here, no capacitance, and by the way, no capacitance means an infinite capacitance. Alright, this is a little tricky because one would think that if I have a short circuit here, C should be 0. But if you think about it, the impedance of a capacitance is 1 over j omega C. And if C is 0, then 1 over j omega C is infinite. And that would mean an infinite impedance, which is an open circuit. So if I want a short circuit, I'll make C infinite so that 1 over j omega C is 0, and that becomes a short circuit. Or basically you are saying, so if this first case, we have only a resistor connected to a voltage source, then of course the phi is 0, the phase, the current and voltage are in phase, and so cos phi is 1, and the power supplied is 4 watts, or power consumed is 4 watts, same thing. And if R is 50 ohms and I may put a 50 microfarad capacitor, and I have chosen such that R is equal to 1 over omega C. So they both, the resistive and reactive components have the same magnitude. Then the angle will be 45 degrees, and so you'll get cos 45 as 0.7, and then the power consumed is 2.8 watts. And if we don't have a resistor at all and only a capacitor connected across a voltage source, then of course R is 0, C is 50, and then cos phi is 0 because the current and voltage are 90 degrees apart from each other, and cos 90 degrees is 0. And of course there is no average power delivered because the capacitor does not consume any energy. So it just takes energy, gives it back, so that the average power delivered is 0. Now this is intuitively clear. The point I want to make is that the power delivered by Vs in this circuit reduces as cos phi reduces. Alright, so there is a direct correlation between the power supplied and the power factor, and that is why this power factor is important. And we will come back to this in just a few minutes. Let us define a couple of other quantities. And again, I'm sure you've done RMS values in your 12th, because this is a revision perhaps. An effective value of a periodic voltage or current is defined as that value which will deliver the same power to a resistor that is delivered by the periodic quantity. Right? Is that DC value, I should say, the term DC is missing here. That DC value which will deliver the same power to a resistor that is delivered as a periodic quantity. So this is the power delivered by a resistor as we just saw. So this is the average power delivered by the resistor. Now if an effective value of the current is some DC value I effective, so that this equality is satisfied. Alright, so then I say the effective value is defined as a square root of the average value, and of course, as you know, this is called a root mean squared. So the root, the 1 by capital T integral 0 to capital T is the average, and this is the square, so it's a root mean square RMS value. For a sinusoidal signal, the root mean square value turns out to be Im by square root of 2. Alright, as you know, I think. Alright, okay, now I want to talk a little about complex power. So as we have seen, as the circuit gets larger, well, the way we solve circuits in sinusoidal steady state is by converting them to the complex domain. So the question we ask is, well, in the complex domain, can I find the power delivered by or consumed by an element without going back to the time domain? So if you go back, so here we did a time domain analysis, right? We did a integral from 0 to t of dt, etc., etc. Can I find this expression directly in the complex domain? So the answer, of course, is yes. So let us look at compare the time domain and complex domain quantities. So if this is the time domain, Vm cos omega t plus phi, then Vm angle phi is the complex domain quantity, Im angle theta is the complex domain quantity. The power is Vm Im by 2 cos phi minus theta. So if you look at this, and we find, if we define a quantity called complex power as S as the phasor Vs times the complex conjugate of the phasor I, and then divide by 2, then we will get, so this we can write out as Vm angle phi, Im angle minus theta if it is a complex conjugate, because a complex conjugate in polar form simply changes the angle, the magnitude stays the same. And so we get the complex power as Vm Im by 2 angle phi minus theta. That is a complex power. So we can write this as the real part plus j times the imaginary part. So the real part is Vm Im by 2 cos phi minus theta plus j Vm Im by 2 sin phi minus theta. Alright, and so the real part of the complex power is actually the average power. Alright, and the imaginary part is often called a reactive power. So the reactive power is the power that is delivered and taken back from inductors and capacitors. It is not really consumed. It is the power that goes and back and forth between the source and the inductor and capacitor. So here is what we are saying. What we are saying is that the average power consumed by an element can be found as the real part of the complex power, where the complex power is defined by half the phasor V times the complex conjugate of the phasor I. Alright, so you can find directly in the complex domain the power consumed, the average power consumed by an element. Now there are, in order to differentiate among different types of power, different units are used to represent each power. So the real power, of course, is watts. The complex power is designated as volt ampere, which of course has the same units as watts, but it is called volt ampere. So if you see volt ampere, you kind of know that one is talking about complex power, and the reactive power is called VAR, volt ampere reactive. All right, so the term VAR implies that one is talking about reactive power. All right. Okay, so I want to go back to this power factor for a few minutes by looking at this example. So let us say we have a generating station that is generating power, or many megawatts of power, and that power is being transmitted over a very long transmission line. This transmission line may be hundreds of kilometers, and I am representing the transmission line by a resistor. So transmission line is of course made of copper, and copper has a very small resistance, but when that cable runs for 100 kilometers, it still adds up to some small resistance. So I've called that RT, T for transmission line. And let's say when the power is delivered, it is delivered to some very large industry, and that industry has a load which can be represented by a simple resistor and an inductor. So these large industrial loads tend to be motors, and very large high powered motors that are doing various kinds of things. And motors can be represented in its simplest case by a series combination of a resistor and an inductor. Very simple, but I want to make a point here. So now let's look at this configuration, and we say let the source be some 400 volts cos omega t. Omega t is 300 radians per second. These are roughly our power supply numbers, but not really, but it's okay. And let us say that RT is 10 ohms. All right, so let's say this generation and transmission is supplying to the three different industries. I'll come to that in a minute. Okay, so for this circuit, we write the current in this mesh simply as Vm by RT plus R plus j omega L. All right, because Vs is Vm cos omega t, so the phasor is only Vm. The impedance is RT plus R plus j omega L. And then we say, I'm finding the power consumed by the transmission line, the RT. So the power consumed by the transmission line is the real part of the voltage across the transmission line, Vt, and I star, the complex conjugate. And Vt of course is RT times I. So we'll get RT I star, and so this is I star will be Vm squared by all this, so RT plus R squared plus omega squared L squared. All right. And the load, the power consumed by the load, can similarly be found as the current. The voltage is I times the impedance, and the power is real times of VL times I star, which is this quantity. All right. Now, what I want to do is let us compare. Let us think that this power is being supplied to three different industries with three different load characteristics. So this is a load R and L. So there are three different load characteristics. One load, so there are three rows here. One load is only resistive and it has no inductance. Another industry has a load that is partly resistive, partly inductive. And another industry has a load that is fully inductive, there is no resistor. And I have kind of designed these numbers so that for each set of numbers, the power consumed by the transmission line is the same. All right. So this power is the same. So these numbers are designed so that the power consumed by all these three industries, the power consumed by the transmission line. Transmission line consumes the same power, 160 watts. The power consumed by the industry in the first case is 1440 watts. By the second industry is 1050 watts, and the third industry it is 0 because it is purely inductive. Now the industry pays the power company according to how much power it consumes. So the first industry will pay corresponding to 1440 watts. So let us say it ran this for 10 hours in a day, and the charge, the I don't know if you know, the the charge, let's say in Bangalore, the amount we pay is about, I think, 7 rupees per kilowatt hour. So this is 1.4 kilowatt. So if I use this much power for 1 hour, then I'll pay 7 rupees. Alright, so let's make it 10 rupees. So 10 rupees for 1 kilowatt hour. So 1.4 kilowatt hour for, so I'm paying how much? 1.4 into 10. So 14 rupees an hour, or for 14.4 rupees an hour this industry pays. So 144 rupees it pays for 1 day. This industry pays 10 rupees, I'm sorry, 105 rupees, and this industry pays nothing. Alright, he's using, he's getting current, but he's actually not consuming any power. Of course, this is a theoretical case, but he's not consuming any power. He's just using driving a motor that's ideal, let us say, and so he's not paying any amount. But the power company is losing 160 watts of power to supply to each of these industries. Alright, so for the power company, this third industry is the worst. The fellow is not paying anything, but the power company is spending money on supplying power to the industry. This guy is okay, but this guy is, for the power company, this is the best case, this is the worst case. Alright, now here is where the power factor, I'm sorry, 1 second. So power factor is important. What this is telling us is that, so this is related to the power factor, that if the industry load is such that the power factor of the industrial load is small, then the industry pays proportionately less charge for the same loss incurred by the power company. Alright, so the power company does not like the power factor to be less as far as any specific industry is concerned. Ideally, the power company would like the power factor to be close to 1, and of course not close to 0. Therefore, generally the power company has a specification given to each large industry saying your power factor must be above a certain number. Alright, I don't know what that number is, but each power company specifies, and the industry must make sure that the load it has this power factor. It cannot be small, because the smaller the power factor, the power supply company is losing more money in supplying the power in the transmission line losses. So what is done? So let's say the industry in its whatever it is, its load is, has a very low power factor, then it introduces a compensating network in its load itself so that the power factor goes up. So for example, if this is a highly inductive, well, I think this is of course not a realistic case because no load is purely inductive, but let us look here. So let us say I have a power factor of 0.7, and if I want to make it 0.9, what I'll do is, I'll go back to the circuit, I'll introduce a capacitor here in parallel, because a capacitor kind of compensates for an inductive power or inductive impedance, and I'll adjust the value of the capacitance such that the overall power factor of the RL and C is higher than it is here, 0.7. Alright, okay. So that is all I wanted to say. But on that note, I want to talk about something else, again related to the I squared R loss in a transmission line. Again, I assume you are familiar with this, but I'll just say it anyway. So the reason, as you know, when power is transmitted over long distances, the okay, now before that, the voltage that we receive in our plug points, in our homes, in our everywhere for use is 220 volts RMS. All right, so the also 220 times square root of times how much? Yeah, square root of 1.4. Uh, so how much? About 320 volts peak. So the voltage we receive, the sinusoidal voltage we receive in our homes is about 320 volts amplitude. That is the voltage that is generated at the generating station also. But when it is transmitted, the voltage is made much higher. All right, it is made maybe 2000 volts or 5000 volts by a transformer, right? I assume you are familiar, so I'm just revising that transmission is done at a very high voltage of many thousands of volts. And what is the reason? The reason is when I'm transmitting a certain amount of power, the power is the voltage times the current. But I want the current while transmission is occurring to be as small as possible to reduce this I squared R, the power loss in the transmission line. The transmission line dissipates power due to its resistance, and that power is proportional to I squared times R. So I want the current to be as small as possible. So I made the voltage as large as possible. So at the sending end and the receiving end, I convert the voltage to much higher at the sending end, send it so that the voltage is high, the current is low. At the receiving end, I convert the voltage back to a lower value and then supply to the consumer. All right, so this is the reason for transmission at high voltages is to reduce transmission losses. All right, if you have questions, you can ask me in the class. All right, so this finishes this chapter. Next lecture, we'll do frequency responsive networks and filters.